Please remember to subscribe. It's just one click for you, but it helps me a lot creating new videos. Thank you. Please share this video. U.S. national debt hits $28 trillion for the first time. The national debt is a serious problem that the pandemic has only inflamed due to the trillions of dollars the country has spent in relief packages. This, on top of the mounting expense of Social Security benefits, which is only expected to increase the debt over time, has led America on a trajectory that many economists consider unsustainable. Printing $1 trillion every other month makes the dollar worth less. $2 trillion for stimulus, $2 trillion or more for infrastructure. Biden is about to make matters much worse. Up to now, money printing raised asset prices but didn't help most people in terms of wages, they were roughly flat. Now, money printing still raises asset prices but hurts most people by making their income, if they have any, buy less. It seems as though we've reached, or have nearly reached, a tipping point that may lead us headlong into hyperinflation. Nearly everything is going up in terms of devalued dollars. Interestingly, gold hasn't fully joined the party, but I don't expect that to last. All hell could break loose at any moment. Food prices are soaring faster than inflation and incomes. This is the tip of the iceberg as we creep closer to $4 per gallon. Keep an eye on what's going on with gas prices. As gas prices go up, everything else goes up. Keep notice of how much more expensive your groceries are. Brick and mortar mom and pop stores closing like never before, showing people have stopped buying as they're feeling the squeeze. They are killing small businesses. And they are going to start overtaxing those who still work to pay for their socialist programs. Trillions of dollars have been just printed. It's around 40% more money than ever existed before. I guess all this money went into the stock market. How else can you explain rising unemployment but a rising stock market at the same time? It's the greatest wealth redistribution. It's the biggest theft of wealth in the history of humanity. People became poor while the corrupted elite became richer. I think we are going to have a crash similar to 1929 and a new Great Depression. It'll be a miracle if this country doesn't totally collapse in the next 18 months. $500 stimulus checks. $600 stimulus checks. $1,400 stimulus checks coming. $3 trillion in "we can just print the money" spending. Any economist surprised that we're seeing inflation should be fired. This economy is a house of cards. Rates move up by 20 points, and the Fed is forced to buy $110 billion of mortgage-backed securities in 2 weeks. Largest increase since May 2020. The Fed is as trapped as it can be. The Federal Reserve increased the money supply at a record rate in 2020. And a move recently announced by the U.S. Treasury Department will mean even more money flooding into the marketplace. In other words, another tidal wave of inflation. The Treasury plans on drawing down the $1.6 trillion balance in its Treasury General Account (TGA) at the Federal Reserve. The Treasury plans to cut the account's balance in half by April and draw it down to $500 billion by the end of June as the Biden administration ramps up spending even more in the coming month. The debt will increase drastically before it goes down. Raise taxes, adopt universal health care, antitrust consensus, bring back the industry. We have been spending trillions on war and the military for far too long. Let's add another $1.9 trillion while we are at it. In fact, we may as well eliminate taxes since the government thinks it can print an unlimited amount of money. We can't print unlimited money and suffer no consequences. How about we reform welfare, let the people get back to work and to school, and actually fight for America's economic advantages around the world? That is what a competent elite would be doing instead of killing the golden goose. With the US dollar as the global reserve currency, America enjoys the exorbitant privilege of being able to print its way out of debt. Until the Federal Reserve says no more, fiat currency is coming to the end of its lifespan. At some point, the printing of money will go kaboom. We can't keep printing money endlessly. We've already printed 60% of the current cash in circulation in the past year. When people start spending money on goods as the government wants, you will have too many dollars chasing too little goods. Money velocity will speed up, causing inflation. Just look at a country like Zimbabwe. A $1 billion bill from there could barely buy a loaf of bread. Because the Federal Reserve and central banks are pumping money into our financial bubble at record speeds, there will come a time soon that the bubble naturally will pop. Despite what the masses may believe, that fueling the markets with additional printed money will not save us from an economic crash. In fact, quite the opposite will occur. The train wreck is coming. And if you haven't heard about bank bail-ins, search how banks can legally steal your money. If a crash happens, it will be the people's money on the line to bail out banks. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. When you expand the money supply by 25% over the last year, who can say they are surprised we see inflation? Wait until you see the upcoming utility bills and the price of gasoline and heating oil. And on top of all of the increase from increased regulation, the Democrats are working on a carbon tax. We already see inflation. It's in the stock market, the housing market, and in land values. Next stop, the grocery store and gas pump. You do not see inflation there just yet because people aren't spending. The money velocity is down. Just wait till people start consuming again in this consumer-driven economy. When that stimulus money makes its way into general commerce, that's when you'll see Weimar. When the government raises corporate taxes, it essentially suppresses the ability of a corporation to pay dividends to its shareholders. In reality, it's a sure way to transfer wealth from the people of the real wealth-producing economy to political parasites, their cronies, and all of their progressively dependent voter pool. Like Hayek wrote, the sure road to serfdom. The banks are all kept alive only by central banks' asset price propping schemes. Without the zero interest rates and QE, asset values would quickly fall to real value based on people's wages and savings, and most bank loans would sink underwater, making the banks insolvent almost immediately. That's exactly what happened in 2008. If people had been following the financial news since late 2019 when the repo markets became a thing for US banks, they would have realized the banks were in trouble. But then again, no major financial entity here in the US reported on it, so people would have had to seek out information themselves. The far majority did not because they would have had no idea what they were looking for. The interest rate in the US banks now is basically zero, and the government during Obama basically made the FDIC insurance worthless. I am scared of our situation. Rampant inflation is coming. Inflation is a tax on the middle class. The poor have zero savings, so they are mostly unaffected in the long term. The rich invest in assets that will hold their value with inflation. The middle class has some savings with much in cash or CDs. They are the ones that get screwed. Inflation is caused by the velocity of money. People are not spending to cause an increase in velocity. The same thing happened from 1929 to 1933. When President Reagan was elected in 1980, America suffered double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rates, and soon double-digit unemployment. 3 worsening recessions starting in 1969 were about to culminate in the worst of all in 1981-1982, with unemployment peaking at 10.8%. Inflation raged at 11.3% in 1979 and 13.5% in 1980, or 25% in 2 years. The Washington establishment at the time argued that this inflation was now endemic to the American economy and could not be stopped, at least not without a calamitous economic collapse. The poverty rate started increasing in 1978, eventually climbing by an astounding 33%, from 11.4% to 15.2%. A fall in real median family income that began in 1978 snowballed to a decline of almost 10% by 1982. In addition, from 1968 to 1982, Dow lost 70% of its real value, reflecting an overall collapse of stocks. President Reagan campaigned on an explicitly articulated, 4-point economic program to reverse this slow-motion collapse of the American economy, which he implemented once elected. 1. Cut tax rates to restore incentives for economic growth, particularly incentives for increased production achieved by allowing producers to keep a higher percentage of what they produce. That encompasses incentives to start new businesses, expand businesses, and create jobs. 2. Cut government spending, embodied first in the 1981 Reagan budget cuts much vilified by the left at the time. 3. Anti-inflation monetary policy holding money supply growth to money demand to maintain a stable value of the dollar. 4. Deregulation to reduce costs for businesses and consumers. These economic policies amounted to the most successful experiment in world history. The Reagan recovery started in official records in November 1982 and lasted 92 months without a recession until July 1990, when the tax increases of the 1990 budget deal created a short, shallow recession. This set a new record for the longest peacetime expansion ever, the previous high in peacetime being 58 months. We know these measures work and that what is being proposed and done by the Biden administration will have the opposite effect. They are printing dollars like mad, and wondering why inflation is ticking up. All the inflation in the world is being artificially kept low until the reset. When you print money into infinity, eventually hyperinflation kicks in, and the currency collapses. They just have to keep that from happening long enough to get everyone on the new social credit currency of total control, aka the beast system of Babylon. They will move the fiat money around to keep this from exploding into every market, but inflation is creeping in regardless. The $28 trillion national debt and chronic annual federal deficit spending mandate that U.S. monetary policy is high inflation and low interest rates. The hope is that the U.S. dollar won't eventually lose its reserve currency status, but history shows that it just isn't possible to prevent forever. Their attempt to throw blocks under the weight of massive federal debt is futile. Expect to see a significant installment of Chinese leadership in America real soon now.